All right, so this is my attempt at the Gauntlet Runner game from the Game Development in 24 Hours course from the Sam's Teach Yourself line. I'm going to go over the game running, and then I'm going to go over a few of the problems I had, which stem from this guide being a little outdated, and how I fixed them. First, if we run the game in the editor, as you can see, I'm using an Xbox controller. And when I pick up power-ups, the time increments, giving me more time to get a higher score. I can hit Y to phase in and out, which doesn't help me or hurt me. When I hit these obstacles, the game slows down and I reach a game over state. That's the game working. So the very first thing you're going to notice when you start trying to implement this project is that a lot of your meshes will be pink. They won't be rendering correctly. And that is because Unity now uses this thing called the Universal Rendering Pipeline by default. The materials that are included in this may not be set up correctly. And so what I had to do is I had to go to each one and go to the shader and change it. It was set to standard, which is not compatible. That's only compatible with the high definition rendering pipeline. So instead I had to go to Universal Render Pipeline, and then hit Complex Lit. The reason you choose Complex Lit over some of these other options is because it gives you the metallic, base map, smoothness, all these settings that are required by the assignment that you wouldn't necessarily have if you chose just Lit. The second major problem I had is actually in the player script. There's this function getAccess from the input class that is part of a legacy input manager that Unity no longer selects by default. The way to fix this is to go to Edit, Project Settings, Player, and then you're going to want to open the Other Settings dropdown and scroll down. You will probably see a warning sign that is right under the Active Input Handling field, and you're going to change that to both. You could potentially set it to old because it will be default set to new, which is not compatible with the script in this guide, but both is the fastest way to ensure compatibility without having to change anything. The only other thing I had to do to make this a little more polished than it was by default was to edit the ground material that we attach, and the only edit I made was to add tiling to it. So by default, tiling is set to 1, which is extremely stretched and distorted. It sells the illusion of speed somewhat, but it also looks extremely distorted, and you can see the individual pixels because the texture is distorted. I just changed this from 1 to around 5, and it gives it a nice square look, which is what the texture was probably supposed to look like when it was created. And that's everything I had to do. Changing the materials shaders to be part of the Universal Render Pipeline, changing the player's input defaults, and changing tiling on the ground texture to look a little better. Other than that, this tutorial still scales very well to the most recent version of Unity.